Alright folks, I'm here with the freshly powder coated rear cradle assembly for Project Fairlady, and I'm about to put in some new bushes. So you can see I've got a GK Tech box over there. I'm using the GK Tech urethane cradle to body mount bushings here. These guys here. Now you can see there's a difference between the flange on the top and the bottom. Depending on how you put them, you can put them in either way. If you put them in with this way to the top, that gives you a standard height configuration for your rear cradle assembly mounted in the chassis. And if you reverse it, it gives you 10 mils of roll center correction. So I will be fitting these this way to get 10 mil of roll center correction, because the rear of this vehicle will be lowered at least 10 mil from factory, possibly more. So the more roll center correction I can get, the better. And apart from that, I'm also fitting the GK Tech solid rear diff mounts to mount the differential in the rear cradle. These are just a solid piece of aluminium that's been machined and then anodized to take away the rubber mount and the flexibility that you get in this section here when your differential mounts in. If you're putting a lot of power through the car, really important to do this. It helps a lot to just stabilize your differential from left to right, and reduces things like, you know, axle hop and all sorts of issues, which we really won't go into now, but it's definitely a good thing. The front mounts on the diff are also going to be solid. So we've gone from rubber mounts to solid diff mounts, and from rubber mounts on the cradle to a urethane cradle mount. So all in all, lots of improvement in the stiffness. It's all about the stiffness, folks. I've never heard anyone being praised for being too soft. Alright, let's get the diff mounts in first. So what I'm doing here, folks, I'm just making a really basic puller arrangement out of a bit of threaded rod and a couple of plates. And I'm just basically going to set that up just to pull this back through from the front and pull it back through into there. Now I'm just going to use an impact driver to do that, and a spanner. And I just had a little bit of an idea, and I thought, well, just to save any potential chipping on the front of this, because it is so nice and powder coated, and you know, I did put a lot of effort into this rear cradle assembly, folks. I've been over it many times with the handheld grinder, you know, cleaning off welding flash and just cleaning up welds and just all that sort of stuff in general, just so that when it was powder coated, it came up extra nice. So don't know how this is going to work. So it may not do anything, but at least I can say yes, I tried. If it does chip all the front of this, because there is going to be a metal plate against there as we pull this in. I'll just get me set up running here. Like I say, folks, this taper on the front and the recess heads this way, obviously. And the big thing is we just got to make sure that we are going in nice and straight. Starts to go cockeyed at all, we have to start again. Oh, straight away. Bang. No good. We'll just give this a bit of a love tap to really straighten it up, folks. Hopefully. Well, you know I want to go straight. Things don't always go as planned, folks. For some reason it wants to come in on a little bit of an angle. This is the stuff that you don't get to see on professional installation videos, folks. They never show you when things don't go right. Worst thing you can do in that situation, folks, is just keep going with it, trying to just think, oh, it'll be alright, it'll just sort of push in straight. It won't, it'll just get worse and worse and worse. You can see on the edge of this here, it's already started to mark it from binding up. So, you know, we'll get onto that and see what the hell's going on. So what I'll do, folks, instead of just going crazy with it with the impact driver, I will start off a lot more gentle with 2 spanners and just use a hammer to just keep correcting it if it starts to go off course, until we get enough of it in that it's going to be good, and then we'll just finish it off with the impact driver. Probably how we should have approached it from the beginning, but that's just the way it is, folks. Often things will go a certain way or they won't go a certain way, you know. You really never know what's going to happen until you sort of start doing something. Yeah, see, this just naturally wants to sort of pull in under there for some reason. Really just wants to wander, folks, as soon as you start getting it in the hole. It just does not want to pull in straight. This is turning out to be quite the bugger, folks. Seeing it here, folks. Live action. Live action. As I said, folks, a lot of installation videos make stuff look like it's really easy to do, and you just start doing it yourself and you hit these sorts of problems and think, oh, what's wrong with me? All the videos I watched, it wasn't anything like this. It's not that there's anything wrong with you guys, it's just that the video didn't really highlight the complexities of what you were doing. So what I'm frigging around with here, folks, I'm trying to work out a way that I can consistently measure how straight the thing's going in before it gets off track. So I'm using the stick out on the verniers, you know, to get the to get an accurate reading on the depth. So I'm just trying to work out a way to get that set up properly. Seems to be that once it starts, it doesn't kind of self-straighten like a lot of stuff does. And even doing this, it just wants to sort of go in. Even though I'm trying to correct it as it moves, it still wants to keep going unevenly and wants to correct itself in an uneven fashion. Which could say something about the hole or just anything, you know. At this stage it would be easy to just say, oh, it'll be alright, and just start getting very ham-fisted with it. But I've been here before, folks, things just don't work that way. make the tiniest little adjustment to it and it just kind of goes sort of overcorrects, you know. Just don't want to have to do any correction work on the inside of this hole to make it guide in straighter. I'm hoping I can just kind of do it. But we shall see. That's reasonably straight there, folks. Whether it stays on that trajectory, we will see. Straight away it started to kink over. It just kind of went. Really shitful. Nah, it just does not want to start properly. So one or the other, it just sort of goes. It won't sort of sit nicely and then just kind of go. It just wants to go kink. That's just terrible. Alright, this isn't working, folks. Need to formulate a new plan. There's obviously an issue with the hole. And you know, typically this sort of thing, it's just a welded sleeve in there, and that's why they sort of just press a bush into it. It's a lot easier to do that sort of thing. It'll compress more with the rubber, but when you move to something like this, it just kind of takes all that sort of give out of it, so that you've got no room for something like this. If it doesn't want to go, it just doesn't want to go. So I'll just turn the camera off, folks, and I'll just set up for it. I'll just change my setup. Alright, so I've just ever so slightly dressed this corner of this edge here. There was a couple of burrs there from my first attempt, which I think may have been helping add to the problem, and just kind of creating a very slight taper on that 45 degree or so angle that we have there, just to help it ease in a little bit more. Hopefully, we'll see. May or may not work, folks, but I'll have another crack at it. But you can feel it here straight away. It just rocks. It doesn't want to sort of ease in nicely. Right, folks, I think I've got it started square now. What I've done to the setup to change it is, firstly, I tried to take out any irregularities with this large flat wheel on the drill here, just to really concentrate on this back area on that taper, and try and sort of work on it. And you can see where the powder coating disappears from. You obviously get nice shiny metal, and you can sort of start to see the irregularities in it. And I use this just to help me to get that a lot smoother. So that's one part of what I've done. I've also changed from the threaded rod through the middle to a larger bolt that more suits the size of the bush, with a washered head built into it to help try and keep it all a bit square. Now, it did take quite a while frigging around at the back, as you saw me doing before with the verniers, like tapping it in just lightly and working it left to right and tighten it and adjust it. And I think at this point I've got a couple of turns on the spanner and it seems to be pulling in straight now. But you can see the amount of work that goes into something like this, guys, that you very rarely ever see on installation videos, particularly on manufacturers' websites. They'll basically start the video now, which is where the bush is centralized and it's starting to go in, and they'll just go, look, buy our product, it goes in this easy. Which is very rarely the case, depending on the product, of course. And those guys out there who aren't doing their own work, they'll expect it to go in like that. They'll take it to a mechanic, and all of a sudden they get charged for X amount of time because it just didn't go like that, and you sort of can't understand. But I saw the video, you know, and I saw them put it in, and it only took 2 seconds, where in real life it might have taken a couple of hours, you know. So anyway, folks, I'll keep going at this. I think, as I say, I think this one is about to go in all the way. I'm just going to keep doing it with spanners at the moment because I'm a little bit hesitant to put the impact driver back on it just because of how it's gone so far. Seems to be moving pretty easy with a spanner, and plus I can keep a really good eye on it. If it does start to kink again, I can pull it out and correct it before I do any damage to the subframe. Yeah, once you get to a point, folks, and it's now straight, all that issue's out the door, and you know, it starts to do what it's meant to do, obviously. And that should be that, folks. Let's get it back apart and see how we've done. As I did before, folks, just a bit of grease on the thread on this. Doesn't matter what it is, anything will do, just to make it a little bit easier for the bolt to pull it in without sort of binding on the nut. Alright, there you go. You can see that we're now there, folks, without any real damage to the finish on the subframe. That's looking pretty good. And like you've seen me do there, folks, patience, take your time. If something's not going right, don't get all hammery and smashy with it. Just stop, relax, have a beer, think about it. Don't be afraid to start again with stuff. You know, sometimes I have 4 or 5 attempts at things. I may only show the successful attempt on YouTube, so you know, I do a bit of that as well. But you know, the reality of this kind of stuff is nothing is really as easy as it seems, particularly if you don't have a lot of experience. I've got tons of experience doing this sort of stuff and every tool that you could want at my disposal, and you still have issues like this. And that's why you need to learn to do stuff yourself, folks. If you take it to a mechanic, their setup is no better than what I've got here in the shed, and you're relying on someone with unknown abilities to do stuff. And I could have potentially destroyed this, either wrecked the bush or wrecked the hole, and I could have like got it back out after buggering it all up and kind of got the thing in, and you'd never know, really. But I know that didn't happen. I took my time, I got it right, you know. Anyway, folks, just trying to impress upon your patience and just take your time. So I guess now we've got to do the second one. Might just do a little bit of prep to the inside of this hole, folks, and try and circumvent a few of these issues, eh? So I'll just cut the camera for a second, I'll do a bit of work on this hole, and we'll be all good. Now at this stage, folks, after cleaning this hole up in the back with the flat wheel, just from using the flat wheel, it does appear that the hole is actually more consistent because of the pattern that the flat wheel's left on that back edge is actually quite even, you know, compared to how it was on this one when I started cleaning it up. So I've got a feeling that this one's going to go together a lot easier. And I've already just knocked that edge off on the bush just with a file, so I'm hoping that this one will actually just kind of go together pretty quickly and pretty easily now, after having a bit of experience with the first one and seeing what we're in for, and you know, doing a couple of little things just to help us out. I'm pretty confident that this one's going to go together fairly easily. I think the biggest problem was what appears to be a little bit of inconsistency in the back of that hole. You've got to remember these sleeves are welded in, and you know, a little bit of distortion from the welding is going to do all sorts of things with that. You know, it's really hard to tell what the effects of the welding would have been. While I'm talking, folks, I just forgot, I really would like to put a little bit more, put some tape on this like I did on that one. It did seem to protect it. The tape was kind of smooshed and mangled up quite a bit when we got this off, and that would have been the finish, I think, if we hadn't have done this. Put a couple of layers on it. Alright. It seemed to just slip straight in, folks. Yeah, it's pretty good. I think it's going to go in. Yeah, it's just going straight in. There you go, folks. One goes in easy with a little bit of prep. Was it the prep, or was it just the fact that the hole was a lot straighter on the entry compared to the previous one? I certainly think it was. I don't think it's any coincidence that when I cleaned this one up with the flat wheel, it came up to look quite consistent, whereas the first one was pretty terrible. And the difference in how that they've how the installation's gone between them. Nearly there. All right, and that's that one. There you go, folks. Great little lesson on what can go wrong, and also how to deal with it. Patience, folks. Patience is your answer for pretty much everything like that. Alright, so we're pretty consistently flat across the back. So what I'll do, folks, I'll fit the differential to it, and then I'll use that to check whether or not these things are in alignment this way properly. We'll bolt the diff up in this position here, slip it through, and then I'll use a feeler gauge down the back and check whether or not both sides are flush up against these bushes. And if there is any inconsistency, what we don't want to do is try and use the bolts to kind of you know, pull it sort of straight, because it's actually going to put tension on the diff cover and stuff. So if there is a difference, we'll use a washer, and then we'll reset this up and we'll pull one through slightly more, and until we get even mating up against these two surfaces, and then that's it. So just because they're in and they're flush, don't assume that it's absolutely in the correct position. You really need to check it with the diff mounted in there, just to be 100% sure, folks. Alright, well, 99% done, folks. So I think we'll just slip the urethane cradle to body mount bushings in now. They generally go in pretty easy, bit of grease and just kind of tap them in. You can either push them in or just sort of tap them in with a rubber hammer. They should go pretty good. So let's throw those guys in, eh? So as I said, folks, I'm putting the small one on the top, or the thin lip on the top, putting the fat one on the bottom, just for that little bit of roll center correction, which is always handy, you know. Anything like that's a good thing. Plenty of grease putting these in, plenty of lube up the hole. Just get your finger right into the hole there, folks, and just lube it up like crazy. Don't be afraid to go right in. Right, there you go. That's what I mean, folks, they generally tend to go in fairly easily like that. So we'll do all the tops and then we'll just flip it over and do the bottoms. Just because it's a little bit awkward trying to pull something up compared to push something down. Yeah. Got to lube up the hole, folks. Going in dry like a madman I was. This is just a bit of white lithium grease, folks. I might as well do these two that we can see first, folks. Just like the aluminium bushes, folks, just getting that initial start. It's always a big pain with this sort of stuff. Damn it, got a bit of sand on it. There's a bit of garnet coming out of the rear cradle from the sandblasting process. A bit of it's just sort of dropped under that bizzo there. She's in. Alright, let's head around the back. It's going to be my third strike, folks. I could be out here. Aha! And he hits a home run. And the crowd goes wild. That's one. Oh, two. Look at that. Alright. We just got to drop the steel sleeve in there now. So once again, heaps of lube. And just belt it in. Try not to get garnet all over it and I'll be good. Ah, nah. Up the shit. It's on absolutely everything now, folks. I have to clean this whole area up. I'll get these done, but I'll have to do them. I'll have to move everything over here out of camera. I'll move everything out of there, folks, so I'm not constantly touching anything that's got this freaking garnet all over it. Alrighty, I'll try and stay clean. This is what you call not having a clean work environment. And that's one. Alright, that one doesn't want to go. We did it, folks. We got there in the end. So I'll clean all this crap up. I'll get rid of all this garnet that's fallen out of the rear cradle. And we'll look at maybe mounting the diff center in and making sure we've got those bushes in there correctly. But unfortunately, folks, we've run out of time. I didn't think that was going to go on quite as long. All the issues with that first diff bush really ate into a lot of time on this video. So you can see, folks, I stopped filming briefly for a second after I finished doing that. I've slipped in a few of the, you know, some of the CAD bolts and all that sort of stuff that I plated earlier. So we'll have to leave the differential installation for another time. I'm still yet to finish cleaning the diff up and everything anyway, so that'll be in an upcoming video. So as always, folks, thanks for stopping by the Aussie Shed. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, give it a thumbs up, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. As always, folks, I'll bloody well see yous on the next one. Cheers.